Alhamdulillah, thumma salatu wassalam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. I wish to take this opportunity to welcome our dear brothers and sisters who spare this valuable time to follow us on the various channels through YouTube, through Zoom, among other channels. I want to start by the best salutation. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today's topic, we are handling the legal capacity, and we are handling it between the tradition, the law, and the Sharia. Because in many cases, these are the factors which affect the Islamic rulings. There is no way we can talk about Sharia without looking at the tradition, without looking at the society in which we live in. But also at the same time, as you are all aware, we are having a challenge of the man-made laws, the laws which we are supposed to adhere to in our countries. So it goes without saying that any decision that we want to make, we must always have it in mind that what does the culture, what does the tradition say, and what do our laws of the land provide. Today we want to look at the legal capacity for marriage. And in the introduction, I would like to interest our listeners or our viewers in the justification and significance of this topic. Why is it important that we are talking about the legal capacity for marriage? Reason number one, this very topic, it comes in as one of the essentials of a valid marriage. Because in order to have a valid marriage, you must have the four essentials. The first one being the offer and acceptance, which we shall discuss very soon, insha'Allah ta'ala. And then we have the contracting parties. Those are the parties who have proposed and who have agreed to the proposal. Then after that, of course, we have the witnesses to this marriage, and then we have guardianship. So today I want to look at the contracting parties. And the first area that we must look at, are they legally competent? Do they have the legal capacity to contract this marriage? Of course, when we talk about the legal capacity, there are a number of factors. But today, inshallah, we want to emphasize, or we want to look at the issue of the age. Why the age for marriage? First, it is related to a misconception that all along has been attributed to our religion, that our religion advocates for child marriages. And that's why it is very important to look at how does the Sharia, look at the marriageable age, the suitable age for marriage. Number two, when we look at the age, it also brings in another factor of consent to marriage. And this is where you will find out that when we go into details, we shall look at under what circumstances can the guardian stand in to give his consent on behalf of the minor. Also, the other factor is, we are living in secular countries. We are living in Muslim minority countries, like Uganda, for instance, whereby we have the laws of the land, and these laws have put there or have specified or determined the minimum age for marriage. Now there comes in a scenario that Sharia is looking at puberty, which might come earlier or which might come later. When it comes earlier, how do we harmonize the Sharia permission to go into marriage by attaining puberty and also the laws of the land, which are not allowing us to go into marriage until that minimum time has been achieved? In the introduction, we all agree that the physical and mental maturity is a condition for liability against all religious responsibilities. This is what is laid down in almost each and every book of fiqh. When we ask about people who qualify to perform salah, the first condition is a taklif. They must have the legal capacity. And in many cases, when we talk about taklif, we mean the physical and the mental maturity. Number two, we all know that when we come to that kind of, when we make such a statement, it means that marriage also is one of the contracts which call for a full legal capacity. For instance, when we look at the age, what is the age, the suitable age for marriage? What is the suitable age for marriage? And why is it like that? Why are we emphasizing that until the person attains that legal capacity, whether in accordance to the law or in accordance to the Sharia or according to the tradition, he should not go into marriage? There are a number of factors to that. In our previous presentations, we made it clear that marriage is an all-round socio-economic responsibility. So a person who is going into this kind of responsibility, he must have attained the minimum legal capacity. Not only that, but marriage comes with public recognition. Marriage comes with independence. Marriage comes with self-reliance. And when you combine all these factors, you will come to the conclusion that really there is need to have the minimum legal capacity. Not only that, but a marriage contract is like signing a memorandum of association whose articles are the following. That is, if we take some time to try and comprehend, to try and think deeper about what are the details of this contract called marriage that we are signing. In my own view, the marriage contract is a signing of a memorandum of association or a memorandum of understanding with 5 main articles. Article 1 is like you are conveying a message: I will forgive and I will tolerate in case I am offended. That is one of the articles. So you are getting into this establishment, you are getting into this responsibility, but at the back of your mind, you are saying that I'm ready to forgive, I'm ready to tolerate in case I am offended by my partner. That is number 1. Number 2, I will listen to my partner in case he or she comes to me in a state of stress. That is the second article that you are signing or you are consenting to. Number 3, I will be contented with a little, because there might be a lot of expectations, but of course along the way, the realities might suggest otherwise. So in this kind of contract, in this kind of understanding, you are confirming to Allah, just like the way you are confirming to the public, that I'm going with Mr. A, I'm going with Madam B, but I will settle for the less. I'm willing to take the little and I will be contented with it. Number 4, I will be grateful in case I get what is plenty. Then number 5, I will reciprocate a rose in case of a thorn. In other words, if I am offended, I'm not going to reciprocate a wrong with a wrong, but you will go with the prophetic hadith which says that وَأَتْبِعِ السَّيِّئَةَ الْحَسَنَةَ تَمْحُهَا. In case you find a certain challenge, in case you are wronged by your partner, you are not going to reciprocate with the wrong, but instead you are going to reciprocate with the good. Now all these articles that I have just talked about, they all come to one conclusion, that sincerely you need a person who can comprehend, who can understand those articles. The legal capacity for marriage is further significant in such a way that the marriage institution is a decision-making institution. You are getting into a responsibility whereby from day one, from time and again, you are going to be busy making decisions. And of course, decision-making calls for maturity and it calls for intelligence. I want to share with my audience some of the decisions which were made by the married people, so that you can see, you can appreciate that really it's a decision-making situation, it's a decision-making responsibility. We are all aware of the prophetic companion by names of Abdul-Rahman ibn Auf, who was so rich. Abdul-Rahman ibn Auf, it is reported that he had a wife, and he also had relatives, the brothers, the sisters, and others. The brothers and sisters could only come to Abdul-Rahman ibn Auf in the state where he has the plenty of wealth. In other words, when he is okay, they could flock into his home. But when they find out that he's not having any more, he's now in a state of bankruptcy, he's poor, they will not come, not even by greeting. Until when they realize that, now he has money, that's when they will come. So one time the wife came and said, my husband, these are not good relatives. Why are they only coming to you in a state when you are okay? It means that they are not friends indeed. They only come to you when they know that your pocket is sounding. When they know that you are having financial challenges, they distance themselves from you. Look at the response of Abdul-Rahman ibn Auf. He would have adhered to what the wife was saying. By doing what? By telling his brothers and sisters that you are not genuine people. But in response, this is what he said. He said, no, to me these are good. These are good relatives. Because they only come when we are okay financially, meaning that they don't want to shame us. They don't want us to be in a shame of coming to us and we cannot provide. So they are good people. Now look at that kind of intelligence that is used by the husband to calm down this wife that no, leave them, it's okay. Because when they come, when we are in a state of poverty, it means that we are going to be ashamed. That is one example. Another example, you know, in the marriage institution, always there are challenges. I was reading somewhere and I found that a certain husband was so offended by the wife, they had a misunderstanding. To an extent that the husband told the wife, I didn't know, I made a mistake. I would have married a shaitan instead of you. to that extent. Now look at the intelligence and the maturity of the wife. In this situation, you could expect emotions, but her intelligence was like, she politely replied by saying, both of us are Muslims, isn't it? Yes. In our religion, we know that our religion prohibits marriage between a brother and a sister. What does it mean? It means that when you are calling me shaitan, you must also be another shaitan. Meaning that if our religion prohibits marriage between a brother and a sister, if you are describing me as a shaitan, and you are saying that you wish you would have married a shaitan, says that, sorry, what I know is that in our religion prohibits us that there is no marriage between a brother and a sister. A simple statement, and this is where the argument ended. That is intelligence that comes under legal capacity. There are many others. Let me end with one. A husband went polygamous, and then the first wife was like, of the two, whom do you love most? Our wives always want that question. Tell me, do you prefer the first, that is herself, or you prefer the new one? This man was a scholar of Islamic jurisprudence. That is what we call usul al-fiqh. The response was simple. He said that in Islamic jurisprudence, we only resort to preference after failure to harmonize. In Islamic jurisprudence, we only resort to preference after failing to harmonize. In other words, I cannot tell you what I prefer because I can still harmonize between the two. As simple as that. So, I'm bringing all this to show you the significance of the legal capacity that is being characterized by the physical maturity and the mental maturity, the intellectual maturity. What has been our tradition? In our history over the years, the basic qualification for capacity for marriage for the boys, it was the physical maturity and some kind of financial capacity. That has always been the basic qualification. On the side of girls, it has always been a growth. Once the girl has attained puberty, then she's fit to go for marriage. She has the legal capacity for marriage. But when we look at what took place in history, we don't have to blame them, especially when we look at the Muslim community here in Uganda. What was the objective then? Because in many cases, it is the objective which determines your conduct. The objective by that time, especially by our forefathers, it was actually survival. Because you know the discrimination that our forefathers passed through. The discrimination against the formal education, among others. The discrimination even in the distribution of the counties, among others. So, their major objective by then, it is how do we survive as the small Muslim community in a secular country. Therefore, there was need for numbers. And if there is need for numbers, there was also need for the protection of the few Muslims who are there from the effect and infiltration of members of other faith. That is why our mothers, I always say, they are such heroes who have not been documented. Do you imagine a situation whereby the mother was patient enough to have her daughter as soon as she attains puberty, as soon as she experiences her first mense, the father could just come, put her on the bicycle, drive her miles. Where is he taking her? He is taking her to a friend 40 kilometers, 50 kilometers away, so that this daughter can become a second wife to that brother. You know, it wasn't a matter of discussion. It wasn't a matter of consent. But the objective was, if we leave this young daughter who has attained puberty, if we leave her around, then we are surrounded by members of other faith, and therefore they can come and impregnate her. After all, she was not going for school. So the objective was that by then it was survival. How do we keep our Muslim society intact from the infiltration of the enemy? That was the objective. So don't blame them. Don't blame them why our mothers didn't go to school. The objective was multiplication of the Muslim numbers. The objective was to make sure that that small Muslim community is kept intact. Therefore, if that is the case, you know that, therefore, the minimum capacity for marriage was as simple as having a small financial ability and also having what we call the food security. Now, in that case, our fathers and our grandfathers and mothers, they lived a true practical definition of the hadith that calls the young men to marry as soon as they attain the capacity. The one which says, Ya ma'ashara al-shabab, or you the what? The youth. Man istata'a minkumul ba'ata falyatazawwaj. Any person who attains the minimum capacity, he should do what? He should get married. So they lived a true practical translation of that. They also lived the true translation and practice of the hadith, whereby the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam called Ali and said that you should never delay 3 things. And one of them, when a young lady attains puberty. So that's it. By the way, this came with an advantage. It came with an advantage that our mothers, their fertility was high, and therefore they could produce more children as compared to the mothers of today. They were starting to produce at an early stage, and therefore they could produce more, and therefore the objective of the multiplication of the members of the Muslim community was being attained. That is the history. Having seen the history, should we continue with that history? What are the contemporary challenges that are facing us now, that are forcing us in order to change the determination of the legal capacity? There are a number of factors. One, education. Now it is no longer acceptable for any responsible citizen to go into marriage except when he has the minimum level of education, at least a certificate, at least a diploma. Others have gone up to the requirement of a degree. And that is why among even the demands that maybe a lady is demanding from the man, is he educated? Now, when you look at our system of education, primary school, 7 years. Secondary school, 6. University, 3, 4, 5. It means that the minimum age is going to change because of this factor. Because the kind of the husband you want must have attained education. So it means that we are no longer going to the history of just requiring puberty, and even having some simple financial ability. That is one of the factors.
Doctor, before we go on,
Yes.
First of all, I would like to do my first interjection, because right now you are giving us what is the reality. But before that, in the beginning of our program, those of you who have just joined us, Doctor is discussing the concept of this contract, the contracting capacity of marriage. And he has been giving us the myths which we have been having. Doctor, I would like to pose this. You are telling us that before, in the earlier days, our parents looked at the physical and mental abilities or capacities.
Yeah.
And you are giving it as a reason of what we should be looking at when we want to marry. Because the question which is now on is, at what time should we have this contractual ability? And Doctor, you are bringing in the physical aspect and the mental aspect.
Yes.
My question is in the context of this country and in the context of our thinking. Why are you dodging the aspect of age in your discussion? Before we go to the aspect of what are you looking for, the issues of age, the issues of the education abilities. Before that, didn't we have the aspect of age as playing as a factor for determining the contractual ability within this contract? Secondly, before we move further, what is the myth, or how has Islam come on to address itself on the myth of determining the ability or the capability of getting married? To what extent, before we go to the other detailed bit which you are driving us at, we need to appreciate also from the Sharia perspective, how has Islam addressed, is there a historical background for us to see how they appreciated the physical and mental abilities as a fact of determining who to get married and when to get married?
Okay.
Yes, Doctor.
Fortunately, both interjections that you are making are leading us to where we are going. We are actually on the right track. I'm not avoiding the discussion on the issue of age, but I started by giving you the foundation that the legal capacity we are talking about, there is a justification for it. And I told you that you are going into a contract, you are going into a responsibility that calls for decision making. And this calls for intellectual capacity, it calls for physical maturity. Now, I have also shared with you that the tradition or the history that we have lived in, it has been different because of the objectives by then. Now, here we are during the contemporary era. In the contemporary era, we have a number of factors that are affecting the right age. We cannot determine the right age until when we look at the factors that are affecting this right age. And first of all, the first factor is the education revolution. It's no longer acceptable to go into marriage when you are not educated. And of course, education takes some time because of the various levels that you pass through. So it goes without saying that even if, by the way, we say that it is 15 years of age, but as long as you are demanded to be educated with a degree, still you will have to complete it. In other words, you will have to pass above the age that is acceptable. So that is the first factor. Now, the issue concerning the myth, we are going to look at it very soon. Let's go to the second factor that is affecting the legal capacity. Some of these factors are affecting positively, others are affecting negatively. You are all witnesses to the fact that poverty is one of the factors that is affecting the minimum age for marriage. Especially in this era whereby a girl child is being commodified. When the family is poor and there is a daughter, to them, if we get a certain man who can give us such and such in terms of bride price, then we can send her away. This has been the situation in some parts of Uganda, because after all, they cannot afford the school fees for this young daughter. If that is the case, then why don't we get someone to marry, and after all, we get some few material things. Also another factor. But another one which is very, very alarming. You know that we are living in an era of early awakening of the sexual urge. Sexual urge, sexual arousal, in many names. The name of sexuality, education. This is affecting the marriageable capacity or the marriage capacity. I don't know whether my audience is aware of a program that is going on in Africa. That program is called The World Starts With Me. If you are not aware of it, have some interest to go and study about its details. It is a program that is going on in Africa, and its major objective is to equip the young generation with the so-called sexual education. It is introducing the young children to oral sex. It is introducing them to various ways of discharging their sexual libido, masturbation. It is introducing them, especially for the young girl children, that it is your right to lose your virginity. If you feel you want it, you can keep it. If you feel you want, you can lose it. It is a program that is having even materials whereby the young children start appreciating the nude pictures at a very early age. Now, if you look at this sexual awakening at an early level, could you really conclude, could you really agree with the Ugandan provision that the minimum age should be 18 years? You know, it means that a child as early as 10, as early as 15, he knows the sexuality. If not practical, at least in theory. But even after knowing the theory, of course, there shall be an urge to go and translate that into practice. So, that is also another factor. Coupled to that, the infiltration of the movies, the peer pressures, socialization programs at the schools where we are taking our children. Socialization programs such as going for swimming pools. And when you go to a swimming pool, you know, the men and the women are all in the same pool, the young girls and the young boys. Now, these are the issues. So this is another factor that is affecting at what age should we have marriage? Because you are trying to emphasize that until she attains 18, but he has a lot and a lot that he has studied about sexuality. Another factor is, which is actually also another alarming factor, what is the minimum basic necessities for marriage? We are living an era whereby this has to be redefined. In the previous eras, if you can rent a single room, it is enough. You have accommodation. During that time, if you can rent a single room and you just have to divide it by a curtain, when you have the visitors sit in front and your bed is behind the curtain. It's no more. Today there is a new definition of what the basic necessities are. Can you afford a self-contained house? Can you afford a car? Do you have a fridge? Do you have a television set? Among others. Now all these are affecting the capacity for marriage. Because it means that the young man has to strive and work hard until when he can attain that, that's when he can raise up and say, I am now ready for what? For marriage. So, if we have such factors, even you can add on, whenever you think about the marriage ceremony today, you must think twice. The high costs of organizing introduction and wedding ceremonies. Previously I was attending one of the marriages and someone whispered to me and said, decoration alone, it costed them 100 million. Now, you are just a graduate. You are just a graduate. You haven't even attained a job. When you hear that decoration alone, these days, they shorten it to look more beautiful, deco. Deco alone is 100 million. Now it means that I'm going to delay to marry until when I can attain that. There is a lot of luxuries that has been introduced into the marriage ceremonies that are affecting the legal capacity for marriage. Now the question is, in the wake of these factors that we have just talked about, can we go by the Sharia capacity of puberty? Because as we are going to discuss the approaches, in Sharia, the legal capacity for marriage is puberty, which can come early, which can delay. Now, amidst the contemporary factors that we have just talked about, education, the redefinition of the basic necessities, the sexual awakening among others, can we go by the fact that once Sharia said that the minimum is puberty, therefore we go with that? That is on one side. On the other side, can we go by the constitutional provision of 18 years of age? Now, these are issues that we must have into consideration before we could actually make a decision on the minimum legal capacity. What is the Sharia perspective? We have seen the tradition. We have seen the contemporary setting. What is the Sharia provision? What is the Sharia perspective? There are two guiding approaches to Sharia. But before I could start, one of the beauties of Sharia, one of the hikmah of Sharia, Sharia did not determine an exact age for marriage. Because of one simple reason. Sharia is, how do you call it? It is all round. Sharia is international. Sharia is borderless. If it had come with one statement that the minimum age is 18, it would have been difficult to implement in other countries. So, that is the introduction. However, Sharia gave us two main guiding approaches in determining the age for marriage. Number one, consideration of puberty. And I repeat, puberty can come earlier, it can delay. But when you try to look into this, at what age, for instance, does the lady experiences the first mens? At what age does this young man experiences maybe the wet dream? Because that is the simple definition of what puberty means. In this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, that is in Surah An-Nisa, وَابْتَلُوا الْيَتَامَى حَتَّى إِذَا بَلَغُوا النِّكَاحِ. Test the orphans until when you are sure that they have reached the age of marriage. It did not specify it. When you realize the signs of growth and development, then you can hand over their property to them. It requires that parents should have the marriage curriculum into the mainstream training and upbringing. If Sharia is talking about puberty, it is throwing the responsibility to you as a parent. That if you have a daughter to what extent have you trained her in home management? That has been the tradition of our mothers. Whatever she's doing that in a company with a young daughter. Slowly but surely she's learning the responsibilities of a wife at home. When it comes to the father could go out with this young boy to teach him the income, the expenditure, the financial discipline, among others. However, this verse does not make it compulsory for the parents to marry off their children as early as those signs of puberty are eminent. This is a misconception. When Sharia says that the minimum age is puberty, does it mean that once the daughter experiences the first mess, you look for a suitable husband? No. So parents need to know that the child might be mature physically, but by the way, not mature psychologically, not mature emotionally, and therefore she's not fit for marriage. It is only one of the elements that has been attained, and therefore it doesn't mean that you should settle with only one and then you make a conclusion and you give away this young daughter into such a big responsibility. Now, it also means that it is up to the parent to look into the individual situation. For instance, you have a girl or you have a boy who is growing faster, but at the same time, is not doing well in school. The growth and development rate is so high. She's in P5, but when you look at her physique, it's as if she's a graduate. How do you deal with that situation? She's growing at a high rate. She's not doing well in class, but at the same time, she's not involved in any way into illicit love relationships. How do you deal with that? It goes back to you. She has attained puberty, but she's still modest. Sharia does not tell you that now send her to school, send her to marriage institution. After all, she's not doing well in class. You can think about other ways how you can equip her with some skills, with some what, until when you see that emotionally she's ready, among others. What about another situation whereby you have a young boy, a young girl who is actually focused in education and is even having some developmental plans, and is not interested in marriage by that time? Should you put a lot of pressure on such a person because he has attained puberty? Of course, no. So it all goes back to you as a parent. Even there are other factors that you need to have into your consideration. If this young couple, if this young daughter is ready for marriage, but maybe the person who is interested in her financially cannot maintain or cannot provide for her, some questions come to the parent. To what extent are you ready to support them? These are some of the realities. The daughter is due for marriage, but the man who is interested in her, he cannot maintain her. To what extent are you ready to support these two people? Some of the questions that could come into consideration: one, should the expression of interest in your daughter, should it be a reason that you want to drop your responsibility as a father? For instance, the responsibility of paying for school fees, as if you have just been on a burden, that once a man comes and expresses interest in your daughter, you say, Alhamdulillah. In Arabic, you say, وَكَفَى اللَّهُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ الْقِتَالَ. Allah has saved me from all this, therefore take her, it is now your responsibility. Parents also need to think about can't you continue paying for the fees of this young lady when you know very well that he's now attached to so and so? Is it okay with you or it is not? Because what we have seen now are options. You either take her and continue paying for the school fees or leave her alone. But you are dealing with two people who are mature, given the factors that you have just seen. And you do not have enough control, to stop them from meeting. So at the end of the day, what is more likely to take place is you are likely to receive an unwanted pregnancy because you can't block them. So as parents, can we think about, for instance, calling these two people and you say, okay, I have understood that you people, you are interested, but I know financially you are not ready. I, as the father of the daughter, am ready to continue paying for her school fees, and you people, you can go into your nikah. Can that one be an option? If that is not your option, are you ready to be the reason for facilitating fornication between your daughter and the son of another person, simply because you say they must complete their education? Now, these are some of the realities. But also, we don't want to only emphasize the size of the parents. What about you, the young man and the young woman? The question that could come to the young man, do you understand fully the responsibility that you want to get into? The challenge is we are always taken by our sexual desires, thinking that the entire institution of marriage is about sex, which is not correct. Are you ready for a full package? Because a full package means that it is a whole responsibility. In the situation whereby you think that you can marry, but now the daughter remains at the father's home, some of the questions that come into existence: who shall be responsible for monitoring your wife? Who is responsible for her modesty? Yes, the nikah has taken place, and you have decided that let her stay in the father's home. In case of any challenge, who is responsible? Are you going to blame the father that he didn't take his responsibility of taking good care of your wife or not? Another question is, do you think that you are going to command trust and respect from her when she's still under the provision of her parents? Have you ever thought of what can take place in between? What about if this young daughter chooses to change, her decision because she's still at the father's home? Nikah alone might not be enough to keep her on you. We have seen those situations. One situation took place in Bali. Of course, it wasn't for marriage, but these are some of the mistakes that we commit. A valid proposal was made, and after this proposal was made, this young lady was taken to the university now, after having a valid proposal. Let us wait for her until she completes education. Now, when she went to the university, the man who proposed her was rich enough. He facilitated her with each and everything. When you enter into her room, it is well facilitated. The fridge, the big screen, among others. Along the way, as she was going on with her education, the man who had proposed to her is not of her age. Is like 20 years above her. And she's now socializing with the peers. Now, during that process, a young boy approached her and she accepted another proposal. Yet there is already a valid proposal at home. In fact, it is this husband who is even paying for the school fees. It is this husband who is taking care of the entire family, even paying school fees for other sisters and brothers. Now, the lady changed her decision along the way. But she had to tell the young man that, you know, there is someone who is taking care of all this. Because of what I have told you, sexual exposure, among others, they had sexual intercourse. And this sexual intercourse culminated into pregnancy. At the end of the day, the whole situation was worse. Because the mother was like, you must abort that pregnancy so that you can marry the man who has been taking care of us. Now, these are some of the challenges when you choose to marry, but you leave the responsibility for others. Another case just took place here at Makerere University. A young man married, the nikah was concluded, but he went for further studies, leaving the young lady in the home of the parents. The young lady is also schooling at Makerere. Now, along the way, the lady saw other suitable husbands. And she's like, I must change my decision. And this has caused a very serious problem between the two families. As we are discussing the legal capacity for marriage, do you have those factors within so that before you could take the right decision, you have already seen all what it entails? Because as I said, this is a full package. So, that's it.
Yes, Doctor, thank you very much. As we are moving, I would wish that we don't let this aspect of taking care of the like when you get married and then you let your spouse be taken care of by the guardians.
Yes.
You have clearly explained it. It's really a contemporary challenge where we get our loved ones, but because of that fear to look after them, we let the parents actually be caring on them. And you have actually posed a question, that question which was, should you leave your spouse to be taken care of by someone else? Doctor, I would like to pose a simple question because it's too much in the youth, especially those who are in their early marriages, if I can say so. Doctor, in your opinion, actually it's not your opinion, I don't need your opinion. In the Sharia perspective, what advice do you give to spouses who have cooperative parents who are willing to look after the spouse, the lady? What is the Sharia's perspective on this? Because it is happening everywhere.
Yeah.
Is it to a large extent acceptable, or for the better? Okay. We better get married when we are in the other traditional aspect which you talked of, because you said that traditionally they wanted us to be physical, mental okay, physical okay, and financial okay.
Yeah.
To you, from your experience and from the Sharia perspective, what is the recommendation? Should I get married and the father looks after my spouse, or I let this go and I wait until I am in position to get married? What's the Sharia perspective on that?
There is no a clear Sharia perspective to that. I say that Sharia leaves the matter to you so that you can find where it is suitable for you. Both of them are okay, depending on the situation. There are certain situations whereby we have registered some positive results. In fact, when you look back, you'll find out that our families had always been part and parcel in support for this. So much so that, to a great extent, you find out that when I'm going to marry, it is always the father who prepares all what I'm going to take to the other family. So it is like the father helping me to grow and to develop into a responsible person. So if at all I have any challenge along the way, still my father can come in. Or the father of my spouse can also come in. So, from the Sharia perspective, it is okay, but I wanted to throw this in general terms so that you can try to look into your individual situation and find out what is suitable for you. That is one. Number two, Sharia, there is a verse in the Quran whereby Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلْيَسْتَعْفِفِ الَّذِينَ لَا يَجِدُونَ نِكَاحًا حَتَّى يُغْنِيَهُمُ اللَّهُ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ. Those who have not yet attained enough financial ability, they should wait, you know. But we are telling you to wait when at the same time your sexual arousal is at the highest peak. So that's why it is left to you to see how do you balance this kind of situation. The family support coming in, it is okay, but you should also consider the challenges that come with it, you know, that come with this situation. So Sharia does not prohibit any, but try to look into your individual situation. If it calls for patience until when you are financially independent, let it be. If the family is ready to take care of that, and also at the same time you are also ready to be patient with the challenges, then let it be. So there is no a clear-cut Sharia perspective on that. It goes to you as an individual. So our conclusion here is Islam has put the minimum age at capacity. It didn't talk about a specific age. But it didn't tell us that as soon as you attain puberty, then the next program is marriage. No. It left it to you so that you can look into other factors, the educational factors among others. That is the first approach. Together? Now, not only that, even today in some other countries, when a lady exceeds 25 years of age, I know of a country which I don't want to mention, when you exceed 25 years, you are in another category. You have a lot of du'as to make in order to get a man. You know? So those are some differences that take place in different environments. You know? Now, if that is Aisha's example, and I say we are not legally bound to follow it, this is not the only sunnah. The Prophet had a daughter by names of Fatima, isn't it? I had some interest in knowing at what age did Fatima got married. This is a daughter. And there is a book known as Tabaqat ibn Sa'ad. It's a reliable book of history. And this book confirmed that Fatima got married at 18. 18 years. Even though some other reports say that she got married at 10. So when we get 10, and the other one says 18, then consider the precedent of Aisha and the precedent of Fatima. The conclusion could be whatever that might have taken place during that time, we are not legally bound by that. In other words, let's go back to our individual factors.
Okay. Doctor, I'm sorry, but some questions, yes. I don't pick them from your head. I pick them from what the members are asking me here online. There is a related question from Brother Sula. He's asking, does this story of Aisha allow us to start the booking aspect? I don't know, you'd see you people, you are mature. But for us in our age, for us there are things which we have, like for example, something known as booking. Somewhere when you tell us that Aisha was married at 6, and then the conjugal rights were at 9, some of us want now to ask the place of booking in these things. Am I allowed to book? And if I'm to book, what comes with booking Sharia-wise? I think that is Brother Sula's question. Okay. And the related question still here, which is online, because your explanation runs with these questions. There is a sister who has asked, I'm sorry I'll not pronounce the sister's question. I wish they could share with me the, because it's one of the, that one. In my case, my mom In my case, my mom took on the burden of helping me financially, but after 6 years, she's the one still providing me with the clothing, because somehow my husband isn't capable of taking care of these responsibilities. What should I do? And now that comes to this now, the question, which is the second one in your discussion. Did Abu Bakr, because Abu Bakr now gives the daughter to Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and we know in history that Abu Bakr was one of the Kalibas. Imam, Sheikh, you don't know these words, but Kaliba means, I think you see they are laughing, was a great friend to the Prophet. And actually, financial-wise, the Prophet was not as strong as... What is your connection between this for the listeners? The booking aspect, and also now this aspect of, getting someone for someone, and somewhere you continue looking for it. Doctor, can you help us?
Thank you very much.
Yes.
These questions are okay as we come to the way forward. Booking is okay in Islam. Booking is okay. It is acceptable. And under booking, this is where scholars discuss the guardian's right to give away the hand of a minor into marriage. It is okay, even though it is not all that encouraged. Because when you book a lady or a young girl at 6, what statement are you making to her mind? I'm just asking. Even if you book her at 10, or as early as P7, what statement are you making into her mind? It might not be, it's okay, but it is not. You want to respond?
Aren't you asked which statement?
Yes.
For us, it is in our nature. Sometimes you can see someone, inshallah.
Okay.
But the reason why we are in this Fiqh of marriage series is to get the answers to these very contemporary issues. Doctor, you can look at a 14-year, she's in S1,
Yes.
you were a teacher at Chibugi SS, and the father is not willing, or is at first year Islamic University in Uganda. Doctor, can I book her? And if I'm to book her, what is the Islamic overview of this booking? Because even the Prophet somehow booked Aisha.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the question, Doctor.
Okay. Your question, I have said booking is okay. But the condition is that should be in the best interest of the young lady. For you, you are a teacher and you are looking at this 13-year-old as suitable. But for her, you might actually not be, her best. Together, I want to relate this with what took place during the Prophet's time. A certain lady by names of Khansa, she was married off by a guardian at a young age because of some interests that to the great extent they were going to the guardian, not to her. When she attained maturity, let's say after 18, after 20, she went to the Prophet and complained. She said, Ya Rasulullah, my guardian married me to this man because of fulfilling his own interests. Meaning that for her she was either too young to appreciate this kind of decision, or she was not even interested. The response by the Prophet was, you have an option. Either to stay in that marriage where somehow you are forced to get into, or you can opt to get out of it. Her statement was, I opt to stay in this marriage, but I wanted our guardians to know that they don't have authority to force us go into the relationships that we are not comfortable with. Now, booking is okay, but to a great extent you are making it with the father of this young child. Is it in the best interest of this young lady? If it is in the best interest, it is okay. By the way, it can even take place. You know, you are the only good person around. And the father feels that, let us book you so that you can wait for her. That one could be acceptable. But you should also be aware of the changing situations. As the lady grows up, there might be a shift, you know, in her considerations. When we are young, our perception and perspectives are different from when we attain age. Maybe by that time she was looking that you are suitable because you are driving a car of a specific model. But as she grows up, she actually feels that it must have been a very big mistake. You know? So, the bottom line is that booking is okay, but don't forget, it must be also be kept within the limits of Sharia. This idea of, I booked her, and therefore you could move anywhere, even in isolation, that one is also not acceptable. But as long as it is in the best interest of the minor, Sharia does not have objection to that. Now, Abu Bakr, you know, you say he was
the financial, you know, somehow the financial assistance, because I picked it from the question, which...
The lady was saying that, Mom facilitated my marriage, and up to now she's still helping. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless that kind of marriage and also bless that kind of a mom. Such a mother might be so much interested in seeing that her daughter is within the halal, and therefore she's ready to do anything in order to sustain and maintain that relationship, which is okay. But my concern is on the side of the husband. You know, in psychology there is a concept of basic trust and basic mistrust. You know, how do you feel, you know, how do you qualify to be called a husband when there is someone who is taking care of the provisions and so on for your wife? At the beginning it might be okay, but along the way you shall be caught up. The concept of basic trust and basic mistrust, it goes in such a way that when you go back to your home, there must be indicators which shows that you are actually a father or you are a husband. If you have children at home, you come back like in this evening, their interest is to look into what are you holding in your hands? Have you brought some bread? Do you have sweets? Do you have what? When you go back empty-handed, children are good to give you them. They always find some good reasons for you. Maybe. Go back home tomorrow with empty hands, they will start doubting. You know, do you qualify actually to be called a father if you are coming back home with empty hands? You know, if they have been running to you as a welcome, this time round, they might just be walking slowly and in such an interested manner because you are not proving that you are a father. Should you go back home the third day without carrying anything, you will only be lucky to find someone welcoming you at the gate. You have lost the trust. You get it? So likewise, when we are discussing, when we are looking at, you know, the provision of the family's coming in and intervention financially is okay. But my worry is up on the side of the husband. Of course, the situation might be like that for some time, but what I could say that this husband must work hard and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to enable him attain at least the minimum capacity, financial capacity, so that he can prove that really I am a husband, I am a father. But generally speaking, there is no problem with that. When you look at the example of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu, of course, giving away his young daughter to the Prophet The historians have also come up with certain factors. One, Abu Bakr himself was so interested because he wanted to consolidate his relationship with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because as you know, the Prophet gave away to Uthman and even gave away to Ali, and then in return, he received it from Umar and he received it from Abu Bakr. So, such an existing situation might also have facilitated this kind of marriage. And that's why I told you that the Prophet's marriage to Aisha is having some divine element. And whenever there is divine element, we always go slow because it might be something that was special to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What is the way forward? Islam has not determined the marriageable age. We have had the precedent of Aisha radhiyallahu anha. What should we take? To me, I think we should determine the age in light of the objectives and responsibility. What is the objective of marriage? What is the responsibility that comes with marriage? The objective is love and tranquility and harmony. The objective is the procreation, the physical, how can I call it? No, those are the two major objectives. Now, at that age, is that lady understanding the meaning of true love? I want to take you to the first chapter which I made. The articles that you're signing on. I'm ready for this, I'm ready for this, I'm ready for this. So the determination of the age should always factor in the objective of marriage. Let me throw some light on procreation. What do the medical doctors say about, age versus procreation? I don't want to answer that. At what age, for instance, is a girl ready to sustain the pregnancy and also to give a normal birth? These are some of the issues. Before we could say puberty is enough, what about other factors? What about the biological factors? So we can determine the age vis-a-vis the objectives. Number two, vis-a-vis the responsibility. Marriage is a fully fledged institution. It comes with a lot of responsibilities, the social responsibilities. In our Ugandan situation, I wish to make a conclusion that Muslims in Uganda, we are bound to follow the constitutional provision of 18 years of age. That is my view. We shouldn't go to the puberty issue. We shouldn't go to the precedent of Aisha. We have an obligation to follow what our constitution says. Because to me, I think that the framers of our constitution might have considered the socio-economic and other factors, the illiteracy, the climate changes, the feeding habits, and so on, and at the end of the day they said the minimum age for maturity is 18. That is if they did that. And by the way, in addition, I got interested into knowing what is the minimum marriageable age across other countries. My conclusion was, the minimum I found, I think it is in Benin, it is 15 years for the girl and maybe 16 for the boy. So, my conclusion is, we are duty bound to follow our constitutional provision of 18 years of age as the minimum. What is my backing here? My backing is, there is a Sharia legal maxim which says, what was not determined by Sharia can be determined by the custom. I repeat, what was not determined by Sharia can be determined by the custom. So our custom has determined that it is 18 years. And where Sharia did not determine, then we are bound to go by the custom. However, the conclusion is we should also have the intervening factors. We should consider the intervening factors. For instance, we are living at an era of moral ignorance. You know, there are certain programs which are introducing the young men and women to sexual arousal and so on, as you say it, at an early age. So, all this necessitates to handle some issues at the basis of case by case. You know, let me end with this. In my very home where I come from, we had such a scenario, such a situation. There was a young girl in the village, and she was growing at a very high rate. You know, as early as primary 4, the breasts have protruded, they are out. When you look at the physique, you know, you come to the school, you could actually mistake her to be one of the teachers. But she's in primary 4. You know, to make matters worse, she was not doing good at all in class. Even before, she was having a lot of comments that, why don't I be taken to primary 2? That is where I can find my level of understanding. Seriously speaking. Now the father of this young lady, and you know, boys could not spare her at the same time. You know, as she's walking back home, boys are just disturbing her. Now the father came for some consultation. What should I do? She's not doing well in class. She's developing at a high rate, and even young men have started following her. The decision was to marry her off. By the time she was married off, she was around 14 or 15 years. Okay? But I can assure you, up to now, she's still in marriage, and she's a very good mother. You know, even in Narongo, she produced twins. She's very good at home management. Education, she failed, you know, but she's doing well in what? In marriage. How do you look at that situation? That's why I told you, it goes back to you as individual parent to study these individual cases and then take an appropriate decision. I want to end here. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. One of the objectives of this series is to try as much as possible to go back to the roots of Islam. And we can't go back to the roots of Islam when we are only looking at the contracting parties. Parents are major stakeholders in marriages, and therefore we emphasize that they should be part and parcel of this project. For our sister, the Turkish living in Germany, where the father is objecting to her marriage to an Afghani religious man, can she opt for sidelining or doing away with the father, and then she goes ahead and contract marriage? At the moment I could answer, even though our next, when we are looking at legal capacity, our next was guardianship. What is the role of the guardian? But simply I can say, Islam gave the guardian the right and the authority to take care of the best interest of the daughter. But at the same time, the guardian should not abuse this right by denying the daughter an opportunity to marry a person who is suitable. But at the same time also, the daughter should not rebel against the guardian, because the guardian also has interest in her marriage in such a way that should she bring someone who is not compatible, the shame goes to the family of the guardian. So that is the balance that should always be there between the guardian and the daughter. The guardian should not abuse his right by denying the daughter to take the husband of her choice who is compatible, but also this daughter should not deprive the guardian of his right to look into the suitability of this husband. Now, where it is observed and concluded that the guardian is abusing his right, like maybe in this situation, we shouldn't hurry to say that you are free, you can go and contract a marriage and you leave the guardian away. No, because at the end of the day, should you have some challenges, your home is the fallback position. So how do you expect for your guardian to come into your issues, your cases, when at the first time you did not involve him? The first step could be, can she involve some other family members? Now, wealth versus religion, I think these are some of the challenges that our daughters are facing. She has identified someone who is religious, but financially is not doing well. And the family has identified someone who is rich, but religious-wise is at zero. How do you balance between the two? Still, it is a discussion, it's a negotiation, it is trying to understand from both sides. Our parents have to understand that wealth is a moving shadow. In the morning, it might be on this side. Afternoon, it is on the other side. In the evening, it's on the other. So, there shouldn't be such a situation whereby you are emphasizing wealth, wealth, wealth. And by the way, in many cases, those rich people, when you look at the means, how did they attain the wealth? They are not all that good means. So, of course, Islam has given us the solution that we go for the religious. But how do we harmonize? It should be a discussion between the family members so that they can have the interest of this young lady and allow her to marry the man of her choice. Requirement for the guardianship, it is just preempting our discussion, but guardianship is a requirement from the side of the lady. It's not all that a requirement on the side of a man. I have ever made this statement, and I remember Imam Kasosi came in. You know, if I want to go and marry, it's not a legal requirement that I should seek permission from my father. But if my sister wants to go for marriage, it is a legal requirement that she seeks consent from the father. Why the difference between the two? Inshallah, we shall look at the rationality in that according to Islam. Okay, is it allowed to marry and go for further studies? Yes, it is allowed. But I have told you the consequences and the challenges. Here I just have to invoke one case. Once Umar ibn al-Khattab was taking around the night patrol, then he had a lady who had composed a poem. And the details of that poem was like, oh, this night is too long, and on my side there is nobody. You know, it was a cold night, and the woman was like, this night is taking so long, it is cold, there is no one by my side, I wish. Then he said, if it wasn't the fear of Allah, I would have brought someone here. In other words, she would have brought a stranger or a strange man to come so that she can satisfy her sexual need. When Umar heard about this, and by the way, this is how policies were being made in Islam, he went direct to Hafsa, that is his daughter, and the Prophet is widow. And he asked, Ya Hafsa, kam tasbirul mar'ah? Hafsa, look at the relationship between the father and dad. It is a matter of national interest. Umar sets away the fact that he's the father, the fact that he's the head of state. He wants to solve a social problem. And he asks, Hafsa, tell me, how long can a woman be patient when the husband is away? Because it is education. There are two versions. One version says that Hafsa said the woman cannot exceed 4 months of sexual patience without having sexual intercourse. 4 months. The other version says 6. From then, Umar made it a state policy, a national policy, that no man shall be allowed to keep away from a wife for a period more than 4 months or more than 6 months. But to me, it's like the version of 4 is more strong. Because even when you see a misunderstanding that has taken place between a husband and a wife, that makes the husband to say, Wallahi, I'm not going to have sexual intercourse with you, because in protest, Allah says, لِلَّذِينَ يُؤْلُونَ مِن نِسَائِهِمْ تَرَبُّصُ أَرْبَعَةٍ أَشْهُرٍ. If you make such a vow, you are not allowed to exceed 4 months. If you take 4 months without having sexual intercourse with your wife because of a misunderstanding, that automatically turns into divorce. You get it? Now, those who got married and went for education, maybe this person was asking about my case, because I also got married and I went for education. Are we together? It goes back to the realities of life. If I can sit with my wife and I agree that I'm going away, will you be patient? And she says, I will be patient. There is no problem with that. Should she find any challenge along the way, she has an obligation to be as open as possible rather than going to satisfy her sexual needs from outside, because this has also been seen. But where the wife cannot be patient, then you rather wait. Or you have to get some other means of making sure that after every 4 months you come back and satisfy the duties. In other words, generally speaking, there is no problem, but you might be creating a certain serious social problem. And we have seen that. Okay. Then the question of my brother Auf. First of all, I'm so grateful that Auf is one of those in our class. He's such a very good colleague, and we have a lot that we share in common. I think Auf's question is just trying to attempt what we have just been discussing. You remember when you asked me about booking, and I asked you, which statement are you making to a 10-year-old girl? Auf is bringing it out clearly as per the Islamic perspective. Islam requires free consent and free will. Now you want to contract a marriage with a young girl of a tender age. Have we attained the free consent? Have we attained the free will or not? But when scholars are discussing this, that is when they bring in the role of the guardian in marrying off a minor. And this is what we said, that it is okay, the guardian can stand in on behalf of this minor to accept the proposal, as long as the proposal is in the best interest of the minor. Should it be discovered that the acceptance of the proposal is in the best interest of the man, that is the guardian, like this man is going to give us a lot of things and so on, this woman, after attaining maturity, she has an option, like the case of Hansa, which we said, she has an option to cancel or to confirm this kind of contract. Okay, another question. I'm married to a man whom I don't want. Can I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so that I should not have children? I think you are going far, Islam this is going too far. A similar situation, somebody told me that I'm married to this woman, but I really don't know what kind of dua she makes at tahajjud. We wake up together at tahajjud. The woman was like, I'm making, du'as so that Allah can separate me from this man. And it's like the man is saying that, oh, Allah, keep us together. Now, you are in such a relationship whereby you are not comfortable. Why are you forcing? To an extent that you want to make dua so that you don't have children with this man. Islam has emancipated you. If you feel not comfortable, get out of it. But don't forget, One of the principles of Islam, وَعَسَىٰ أَن تَكْرَهُ شَيْئًا وَيَجْعَلُ اللَّهُ فِيهِ خَيْرًا كَثِيرًا. You might be hating this man, but behind that there is a lot of good. A similar principle of Islam, you might hate something, yet actually it is better for you. I could advise this young lady to make some kind of istikhara, to consult Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about the situation she's passing through. But if the signs are clear that it is negative, let her be open enough and get out of it. Because overstay in this, it is calling for something else. In other words, she shall go where her soul rests. She keeps this formally, then she gets satisfaction outside, and that is too bad for herself and for the community. Another one is, here in China, things are different.
Yes.
It's not about legal capacity or what, as long as the sexually we are okay. First, the rules of China are different from the rules of Uganda. And that's why I told you the beauty of Islam is that it did not determine an exact age. So, let him go by what is taking place in what? In China. By the way, on this matter, I have given you two scenarios, and you can choose what is better for you. You can choose to consider capacity by age, depending on what you are passing through. You can also choose to consider capacity by puberty, depending on what you are going through. So, Islam left it open. Sex education, at what time should it start? It depends on the curriculum. It depends on the curriculum. I don't see a problem for the parent to start making the daughter or the young man aware of the growth and developmental changes in the body for the purpose of warning or of making her to take care. I don't see the problem with that. This is similar to the hadith narrated in respect to Asma binti Abi Bakr, the daughter of Abu Bakr, a sister to Aisha. When she came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and she had not covered herself fully, and the Prophet said, Ya Asma, O Asma, innal mar'a idha balagat al-mahid, when a lady attains the first mens, lam yajuz an yura minha illa hadha wa dhak. It's not allowed to expose her body except the face and the palms. I think in this way, indirectly, the Prophet is telling her that take care. Because the men of this era, they are too quick to see that you are ripe. You are ready. Are we together? So it is the responsibility of the parent, when he starts looking at this, to start introducing the sexual education whose curriculum is to make this lady take good care of herself. I don't see a problem with that. Otherwise, this other curriculum of what and what, like the world starts with me, to me I think it is not even relevant. It is just meant to spoil the generation. The other one is, of course, guardianship. I've already attempted to that.
But Doctor, on that one, there is that question of which you have just answered. The sex education talk.
Yes.
Well, it's your recommendation. Personally, I'm not satisfied with your answer.
Go ahead.
I'm not satisfied that it depends on the curriculum. In the Sharia perspective, what should I begin with and where should I end? Because one of the things you are recommending is parents to bring their children to be aware of the life of marriage before they reach marriage. And my question is, Dr. Sharia-wise, omwana naba simuwemula we natandika to teach, to talk about sex education. The question here was, when should we do it, and does Sharia allow us to do it? That's what I want you to help us understand.
I'm convinced that I gave you a right answer. Sexual education has curriculum, it has introduction, it has the body, it has the conclusion.
So who determines it? Me, the parent?
Who determines the parent? You could see what is appropriate at that particular time. Sometimes you tell a young lady or you tell a young man or a young boy something and you are just sending him to go and discover. You know? Let me tell you something. There was a certain science book which during our time we used to study, you know? And it was, I think it is P6 whereby they talk about the sexual reproductive system, you know? One of my colleagues we teach with at a university is a certain doctor, a colleague. He told me that once he found his young boy, you know, opening that book of science. And then the young boy isolated in a certain corner, opened the book, and the face was full of smiles and excitement. Now the father was like, this young boy, I'm sure he cannot understand the content. What is that has excited him? So he moved slowly behind, and the child was so excited because he's appreciating the female anatomy. You get it? Now, after that kind of excitement, what do you expect next? Because at that age, by the way, they are even still sharing the same bathroom. They use the same basin and so on. So that's why I'm saying that if it is a kind of education that is meant to caution him, my dear daughter, since you have experienced the first mess, then take care. Should you play around with the boy, it can culminate into pregnancy. To me, that is sexual education that is meant to warn her of the consequences. Wallahu a'lam.
All right, time is never our best ally. We are supposed to be ending at 6:30, but I have some questions that are flowing. Please, Brother Kasim Bagonza and also Sister Birunji Fatuma and Sister Khadija and Brother Kawere Zubair have taken note of your questions, and I want to assure you Dr. Hafiz will answer these questions in the subsequent lectures, inshallah. We are time bad and we need to come to the end, but before we come to the end, this is very important. All the sisters and brothers who make it a point to always be with us in the boardroom, Sister Rahma Musa and others, dear sisters, thank you very much. You make us feel proud and you make us feel that really we have a reason to be coming here every Tuesday. May Allah ease it for you. For the brothers, you're on your project, so it's you to be in these lectures. So please help yourselves to be attending such lectures. To the online audience, thank you very much to each of you, Sister Khadija and all of you, Sister Nagadia Aisha, our colleague and actually a lecturer. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala relieve you from the sicknesses. To each one of you, thank you very much. To Saluh team and also to the AL-HIDAAYA digital media who make it a point to have us live streamed on our YouTube channels. Thank you very much. AL-HIDAAYA, thank you very much. Saluh, thank you very much. To our ICT team who ensure that we are having online Zoom classes, Bwani Kanasa, Brother Mwima, Brother Swale, thank you very much. It is always a moment. If you want to have our lectures, please you can join us in our chat room by sending a WhatsApp on 0705. Because we have international audience, let me use the Ugandan code. You can send us on +256 705 666. I think it is 510. 210, yes. +256 705 666 210. You can send, they will give you a WhatsApp link. Or you can go to the digital YouTube of AL-HIDAAYA Digital or on the Saluh digital platforms. You will be in position to follow Dr. Walusimbi. Also, we are soon forcing Dr. Walusimbi to have these lectures live streamed on his Facebook page because they are there on his YouTube channel. Please follow him or follow him on his social media. You'll be in position to get them. Till next, we stream every Tuesday from 4:30. We are supposed to be ending at 6:30, but because of some issues, sometimes we push it. That's it from us and from the team. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati lamma yasifun wa salamun ala al-mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin wa assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.